hills of Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood at night. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying,
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, October 14th. LA Galaxy back in action this weekend. That's right. You actually get a Saturday night home game. By the way, there's another one coming too. Wonders never cease. We're going to get you ready for the LA Galaxy hosting Portland Timbers. A big game. Some people are calling it must win. Those people don't know how to do math, but we're going to get you ready for it anyway. A whole bunch of stuff. Greg Vanny had a press conference today. Sasha Kleshtin talked some sense, as Sasha Kleshtin normally does. We have the 22 under 22 list that we want to cover a little bit, and one of the LA Galaxy's players is eligible for the National Soccer Hall of Fame. We're going to start with that one and get you rocking and rolling. To help me do all that, he's back, he's in action. It's Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira. Eric, how's it going, buddy?
Buenas noches, damas y caballeros. I've been wanting to say that.
For how long?
For about 10 minutes.
Okay.
I did look it up because I wanted to give a full speech, but I guess Disney no longer has that announcement. I would guess damas y caballeros is not an in vogue term anymore. But aside from the point,
right.
Excited to be here playing the role of Eric Vieira tonight. I saw that in the chat.
Yes. I like to announce it like it's a Broadway show. Like there's, somebody's playing the part of Josh Guesman tonight is William Shatner. Hey, Bill, up into space and back. That was kind of cool too. I don't know if everybody saw that.
That was interesting. Yeah.
There was I forget who it was, maybe Ricky Gervais, I think, put out. He said that whenever Shatner goes up, William Shatner goes up, that whenever he comes back down, that everybody should dress up as Planet of the Apes characters like that. You know, good. Like he lands and everybody's, oh look, I thought that would have been funny too. So anyway, William
good times.
Shatner. Yeah, good times.
And we're off the rails again. Jeff Bezos, William Shatner. Damas y caballeros, we're all over the place. I love it. Must be Thursday.
Some of the first Spanish I ever learned, besides the curse words, because a lot of my teammates on my soccer team spoke Spanish, so all the curse words was obviously the Matterhorn, and remain seated, please. Se van a ser sentados, por favor. That type of things. I don't even know if I say that correctly, but in my mind I do, and it sounds wonderful.
Also,
so between those, yes.
Also, an excellent part of the No Doubt debut album. Or I don't know if that was their debut album, but when No Doubt was hot in the late 90s, they had Termine Ser Sentados, por favor. Can we sound any whiter when we say it?
I can't. I'm at peak whiteness whenever I try to say anything in Spanish. I like the hue, the saturation level goes all the way to the white side on that one. So glad we're doing it. I told you that really tonight I am excited to be here, and obviously the Dodgers are playing in their playoff game against San Francisco in a deciding game. Dodgers up 1-0 right now in the middle of the sixth. Not that if you're listening on the podcast, you care, but the people listening in the chat room might care. The 3 or 4 people who are here because the Dodgers are playing and everything else. But I told you before, I actually wanted to. I wanted to do the show tonight. Please don't misunderstand. But my wife is watching a show that looked really stupid until I walked by and this one girl punched another girl, and now I'm pretty much obsessed with that and only that. So if you see me, sort of zoning out, it's because I'm texting her asking who hit somebody and that type of thing. So. There we go.
That's a natural progression. I call that the husbands of Real Housewives of New York theory. You first walk by, you say, this is ridiculous.
Yes.
Then you say, wait, who did she throw the drink at?
Yeah.
Then Like, I can't believe that she didn't invite her to the birthday party. It's a very gradual progression, but we've all been there.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. All right. LA Galaxy getting back in action, training this week. Although, if you listen to Greg Vanney, and we'll have some sound from Greg Vanney, we'll have some sound from Sasha Kleshtin. If you listen to Greg, he's not exactly thrilled about the fact that he has all these international players that were gone and that they were trying. But at the same time, Greg and Dennis, you guys put the roster together so that way you could have these guys, and then you knew they were national team players, and now when they go, I don't know, like, who are you blaming? Are you looking around being like, which of us picked all these guys to be on the national team? It was interesting. Somebody in our Discord was talking about Bruce Arena, and Bruce has this tendency, Eric, to pick very good players, but players that maybe aren't national team players, like not quite. Obviously, Matt Turner's in there, but it's not like he has 14 guys that usually disappear and go away. And there's some advantage to that whenever you think about sort of national team players. So, like in MLS, remember, you get punished for picking national team players. No other league do you get punished really for picking national team players. But you will in Major League Soccer. So the better your players are that you're able to fit under the salary cap, the more punishment you get because they're going to leave in windows that MLS closes its eyes and like plugs its ears and says, what? We're playing. So, it's interesting. There's a whole science to all this. And I think, again, it's why it's so important to have people who understand Major League Soccer and all the intricacies, right? Guillermo Barros-Schelotto, maybe not so understanding of some of that stuff. Dennis Kloese, I think a little more. I think it helps with Greg Vanney. I think that they make a good partnership. I'll tell you right now that I currently see no way and no path forward for the LA Galaxy to keep Dennis Kloese, and nor do I think they want to. So if everybody was, if everybody's sort of holding their breath, bomb. I don't know if it's a truth. I think we've been talking about it, right? We've been sort of hinting at that. I mean, but I'm just saying I don't see a way, Eric, right now, currently, as everything is set up, for the LA Galaxy to to continue to have Dennis Kloese in there. By the way, bad news: Giants tie the game, home run. So
notice that
1-1, bottom of 6.
The beauty of is the people listening on Friday morning, and they're like, "Yeah, we know.
Yeah, we know.
We saw, but you get to see the heartache of the chat go off as it happens. So,
it is
fun times.
I do like seeing the emotion pour out of the AOL chat room that's to our left. It reminds you of an AOL chat room, does it not?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm just checking.
You're taking us way back.
What? Hey, I tried to pick up many a young lady in my high school years in the AOL chats. All right, I'm not saying it ever went particularly well, but I tried. You
were not a stranger from the ASL acronym there.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, fair enough. So Dennis Kloese, you really think it's just not going to happen? It's unfortunate because I think you were talking about it. I don't know if it was with Christian or with Sophie. You were saying how he really has his finger on the pulse of the academy and kind of all of the other workings. So keeping him around would really be beneficial. But it's unfortunate because I think Greg, especially with the signings that were brought in this season, you think, okay, he has his fingerprint on the first team, but we know that being a general manager of the LA Galaxy, it's so much more than the first team. And so having a two-headed monster in there, I feel like it's so much better. But you're right. There are a lot of tea leaves to be read that it looks like that's not going to be the direction the Galaxy are going.
Ari says if DTK leaves, and he's talking about the Galaxy, take a step backwards. Who would possibly replace him? Well, they're going to give Greg Vanney both jobs. Yeah. And listen, there are some very successful coaches, and we've talked about it. Bruce Arena is a very successful coach as a GM. I've talked, I think it was with Sophie, but I talked and said about this. The reason that Bruce is so successful as a GM and a coach is because he piles everybody underneath him that can do the jobs that he needs to have done. So Cardinalfo, who everybody remembers as Galaxy fans, does a tremendous amount of work for New England and helps Bruce out with a lot of that stuff. So Bruce is able to keep track of the academy because Kurt is able to keep track of the academy for him and the second team stuff, all of those things. So he gets help, and so he creates strong organizations. Peter Vermees, I believe, is the same way. I don't have as intricate a view as some, but I've talked to other people and they're like, no, it is Vermees is at the top and every decision rolls through him. But you have to imagine that underneath him is all these people that he trusts to do the job. The problem is, who at the LA Galaxy do you trust to do these jobs? And the bottom line is, if you lose somebody like Dennis Kloese, it doesn't feel like you're going to be backfilled with somebody who can do all of that stuff, right? You're losing manpower. It doesn't feel like you're gaining any manpower. And that maybe Greg Vanney goes on a hiring spree, gets a whole bunch of people underneath him. But remember, there's no academy director right now. So you already don't have that. If Dennis leaves, now you have all of the progress that was made with the academy over the last 3 years since Dennis sort of came in, and I believe stabilized some things. And I think we've seen that with contracts. That all goes away. All the relationships that Dennis Kloese built all goes away. All the goodwill that we seem to have seen develop within the academy system and with LA Galaxy 2 and the contracts and the progressions and all that stuff, you lose some of that. And so, super interesting off-season sort of stuff.
Yeah. My counterpoint, I'm going to zag a little bit in the other direction here.
Yes.
Just because if we're honest about it, I know Dennis is a friend of the show and we're very complimentary of him. And I think he has pushed the organization in the right direction and has his finger on the pulse, like I mentioned, on a lot of different, areas. And I think he is doing a good job. But the counterpoint, if we are being honest, is that the Galaxy, while having taken a step forward, they maybe with the signings that they've brought in, haven't knocked it 100% out of the park. There's been a lot of misses as well. We've been rebuilding our backline for the last 4 or 5 years. We just can't seem to get it right. And part of that falls on the general manager as well. So not just bringing in loaning signings, bringing in someone with stability and making sure that it's the right pick. We haven't necessarily hit it out of the park with that backline. And then Chicharito, whether you love him or hate him, it was a very expensive signing. It was beneficial at the beginning of the year this year, but there was also a poor season the year before. There's also his age. He's not someone who's a long-term, project for the LA Galaxy. So you think, yes, Dennis has moved the club forward, but maybe it's not, moving as far as it could be. There's more potential there. So if Greg is under the helm and he does want to backfill or bring assistance, so he's still at the helm, and maybe there's not a quote unquote general manager, but he has assistants that are helping him out. Maybe not all is lost. It's not the worst thing in the world. So I just want to go the other direction because I don't want us, because I do see it in the chat and I think it's important to point out, just because if DTK does leave, it is a blow in my opinion, and I think in your opinion as well, but it doesn't mean that the club is going to go back to the dark ages. There is a foundation. It is moving in the right direction. I think, Greg Vanney has shown in other clubs that he's capable. Is it ideal from our perspective? Probably not. But I don't think, I don't think we need to say the sky is falling just yet. One, he's not gone. And two, we don't know what the replacement will be or what the vision is. Because you mentioned the academy director.
Yeah. What the structure is.
Maybe Greg Vanney wants a certain person in charge of the academy, and maybe he wants a certain direction or a certain style of play. So maybe it's best that he makes that decision if he's going to be funneling everyone eventually through the first team. So maybe he does have a vision and something in place. So let's not throw it all out the window.
It's a gamble, though.
We're not on fire yet, but it is a gamble. You're hitting reset.
You're hitting reset on something that maybe you have hit reset on many times before, and you have seen positive results. Listen, I mean, you have to go back, and I think you should, Gamma Schelotto was not a home run for Dennis Kloese. That's a swing and a miss for him. That was also right whenever he got brought in, his job was like to find a coach now. So, there's some of that stuff that was a swing and miss. It didn't work, and that was the thing. You talk right. They have not hit on other things. You talk about rebuilding the back line. The Galaxy have been rebuilding the back line since Bruce Arena left in 2016. So all the GMs, everybody has failed basically at doing that. And at the same time, we've also sort of hinted it's not always the back line. How many defenders can you buy before you realize it's not always the back line? And so that's part of it too, is what are you going to do with the midfield? And I'll say that I think up until this point, the midfield has been fairly locked up in sort of this, long contracts, and, you can't move Jonathan Dos Santos is gone at the end of this year for, I can see very little pathways to keeping him, but that opens up a designated player spot. That gives you a chance really to get another player who can really affect this team. And so, if Greg Vanney's in charge of that, then listen, Greg is a perfectly capable person, and I think that you could do a lot worse than having him as GM. I do not think that in 2021 and in Major League Soccer that you can have Eric, that you can have one guy do it all. I don't. And, again, we can talk about the outliers, but the outliers are few and far between. Now, there's a lot of GMs that are struggling at all sorts of clubs. Major League Soccer is very unforgiving. So it's certainly one of those things that you have to balance and sort of look at. I'm just saying that the Galaxy, you're taking a huge gamble, because if you say that they made step forward this year, which I will say they made step forwards this year, I think they have the right coach in place with Greg Vanney. I think they have some personnel that they can carry over and work towards. And I think next year they're not going to have 17 new players to try to work into things. And I think the players are good enough, Eric, that you're going to be able to work with them and get them to a point where where you can get them. So I think all of that is a positive. But if you decide to get rid of Dennis Kloese, if you move him away and your team takes a step backwards, that's you had it moving in a right direction, and you decided to stop that momentum to do this. So huge gamble, and quite honestly puts a bunch of people's jobs on the line. I honestly think that if you keep Dennis Kloese, if you're an upper level executive, either a Beckerman or a Klein in this, that provides you some cover.
It's Operation Human Shield.
It is,
and partially, and I think Christian's made this point before, and Sophie's made it as well. And again, I just like shouting them out because I do love hearing them when they're on the show. But, Dennis does a great job of being the person in front of the message. He's the one, making podcast appearances, addressing, the journalists, and kind of, he's that first line of defense. So you're right. It does provide a little bit of cover. And, if he does go and Greg Vanney is the one in charge, it leaves him exposed. There's one less layer. If they do take a step backward, if there's some more misses, there's only one person in charge. There's only one person to blame when it goes wrong as well. So you're right. If they're looking out for their own job, it doesn't hurt to have a little buffer in between as well. But it sounds like things. I don't know that they've soured, but it just seems like it's not a. It is what it is. Yeah.
It's like a default decision. It's like they're falling into this, right? Dennis Kloese has an extension, blah blah blah, the whole deal. And so if you don't extend him, then he goes away, and everybody knows that. And so just really interesting. Keep your eye on that. Keep watching. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on that, but I was thinking about this stuff, and whenever I think about it, and then I start, I'm in the shower in the morning, good visual, in the shower in the morning going, what's going to happen next year? And I'm thinking about next year because everybody I talk to is thinking about next year, right? And it's not that they've written this year off. It's just, that's what you do, is you have to plan for next year. So what's happening next year for the LA Galaxy? And 2022 is a very important season. And so, again, you just have to sort of watch that stuff. So let's move on from that. I want to talk about some good stuff. A legend. And it's funny because we talk about the National Hall of Fame, which is in Dallas. Eric, you visited not too long ago.
If you're in the Dallas area, if you're near Frisco, Texas, $5 on a Wednesday will get you into the National Soccer Hall of Fame. And I actually had a great time. It's well done. There's a virtual experience. They scan your face. So every time you walk up to an exhibit, you get to interact with all the screens there. And someone who's featured in the National Soccer Hall of Fame already, Robbie Keane, you can scroll through MLS and MLS Cups and see his name pop up already. So it's just a matter of making it official this year. So, I feel like he's deserving. We'll see how it all goes with the eligible candidates. But National Soccer Hall of Fame, don't sleep on it. It's a fun time.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see sort of how it goes. First year of player eligibility for Clint Dempsey, for Yale Averbuch, Brad Evans, and Robbie Keane. It's interesting, again, the National Hall of Fame, it's the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame whenever you think about it, but Robbie Keane played a big part of that with the LA Galaxy playing for MLS. So you sit there and look at this, Robbie Keane should be, I imagine, a first ballot vote in, as is Clint Dempsey. The other two first years in Evans, I can understand why some people would vote him in. I don't have a vote, so don't take this as anything. I'm not tipping my votes. So just understand, that sort of things. So I think that it's really a cool thing to sit there and you wonder, there's certain number of years after retirement before you can be considered for this, that type of thing, which is why Landon Donovan hasn't been there yet. Relax. It'll happen. First ballot, unanimous. All right. So I think Clint Dempsey probably gets first ballot unanimous as well. Yeah. I don't see anybody voting against Clint Dempsey. I would vote for him in a heartbeat.
Yeah. The correlation that I make, I think this year's inductees, Jaime Moreno was in that class. So he's someone, again, not an American, but when you think of the early years of MLS, he's someone who really, torched the league, scored a lot of goals. And so I think that's the type of player who you see it had a great impact on the league and on the sport in the country. And Robbie Keane fits right in there. Once he got into the league, scored a ton of goals, won MLS Cups, has the resume, has the history, fully deserving. I would imagine he gets in. Clint Dempsey, I think that's a no-brainer for first ballot. If you caught me on the right time, on the right day, sometime between 2015 and 2016, I would have said that he's probably probably the greatest to ever wear, one of the most talented U.S. soccer player that's ever played on the national team. Obviously, Landon Donovan has more longevity, more more stats to back it up. But Clint Dempsey is right there as like a 1B in my opinion. He's right there next to Landon Donovan. So I think he's a no-brainer. The other two, again, I don't want to disparage. If you had a long career like
Brad Evans played for a
Brad
long
Evans and
time.
Yale Averbuch, great. But if we're talking about the Hall of Fame, there's a reason why it's the Hall of Fame. You need to separate at a certain point. And so I just don't know how I feel about the other. Again, not to say that they haven't accomplished anything, but
Right.
if we're talking Hall of Fame all-time greats, Clint Dempsey, Robbie Keane, you hear those names, there's a separation between the other two names on that list as well, and it's clear. So, maybe they still get in because it's all based on votes and people who make those decisions. But I think when you look at that list, there's a very clear separation on who's legendary and had a major impact on the game, and then maybe some people who just had some nice careers but maybe aren't worthy of that Hall of Fame distinction. Again, here I am. You backed me into
both sides
to bad mouthing somebody. No, to bad mouthing somebody. I'm basically saying they're a step below.
Yes,
and I'll stand by that.
Okay.
I'll wear it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do you. I don't want to make anybody upset. I don't want it's. I just wanted to say Robbie Keane gets in. That's all. I mean, and I don't think that's a controversial statement. So we'll leave it at that one and sort of move on. But anyway, that'll come up in 2022. So the voting won't happen until 2022, but they put the ballot out there. Robbie Keane's on the ballot. I expect him to get in. That'll be something that everybody can look forward to in 2022. Let's talk about the LA Galaxy's players out on international duty because they are quote unquote all back in. Greg Vanney said all the players would be returning today. Some of them have already returned. And I think he said basically all the players are back today, and like guys like Sebastian Lletget, Jonathan Dos Santos didn't check in. They'll check in tomorrow, but they're back here in LA, so they're there. But some interesting things that we talked to Greg Vanney about. We'll get into some of his stuff as well. Let's talk about Danilo Acosta. Didn't dress in Honduras's 2-0 loss to Jamaica. Did not play. Did not dress. So he's available, or he would be, except he's in quarantine coming back. So him coming back to play with the LA Galaxy means that he will not be available this weekend because he's in quarantine for that reason. There was only one other player who was also in quarantine and cannot play, and they were actually playing, quote unquote, playing against each other, except that Danilo Acosta didn't play. O'Neal Fisher for Jamaica. O'Neal Fisher started 90 minutes, 2-0 win over Honduras. At Honduras, he scored a goal.
First international goal. Yeah. And a nice goal.
Nice cut inside, a nice right-footed rocket into the far. So everything about it was very nice. And so you're saying, if you're Greg Vanney, you're like, oh man, this is a guy who's feeling it now. Maybe it's time to get him into the game. He's quarantined. He won't be available for the game this weekend. So I don't want to speculate on any of this, but not everybody has to go through quarantine, just to sort of keep your eyes on that. Everybody else will be available. All the internationals are coming back, will be available for Saturday. So Nico Hämäläinen played 120 minutes total. Finland beat Kazakhstan 2-0, so that was good, and he played the full 90 minutes in that game. You had Sebastian Lletget. Sebastian Lletget, Jonathan Dos Santos are interesting ones. Let me come back to them. So Ryan Raveloson played for Madagascar. Greg Vanney actually shouted him out and said Ryan was happy to be back, and I think Ryan was actually back on Tuesday because they played last game on Sunday. So by the time he made all his flights and got back, he's been back and training with the club. He will be available, but they won. Madagascar did against the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and they won 1-0, and that goal was scored in like the first 2 or 3 minutes, if I remember correctly. Saw that. So they won. He was happy. He was excited, and he's back training. Raveloson last time was one of the guys who had to be quarantined whenever he came back. He is not under that quarantine this time and will be available to play. So again, if you're keeping track of everything and trying to do the math in your head, I think you can understand where everybody is. But again, fully vaccinated players are usually not subject to quarantine unless there's a positive test of some sort. In order to do that, that's generally the rules, and so that's you can do with it. I don't want to shout people out, but you can connect dots here. So
correct, and if there was a positive, an exposure or contact tracing, you'd hear about it from those camps, from those national teams, and you haven't, so you can make your assumptions probably pretty safely, and that's okay. The one thing that I will say, there's one more World Cup qualifying cycle, and that's going to be in November. Now, the question is going to be, is that going to affect the Galaxy or is that not? Because it goes to November, so the Galaxy have to make the playoffs. So if they do happen to make the playoffs, then these are players that you need to keep track of with Danilo Acosta and O'Neal Fisher. again, when we look at the amount of minutes that they've played and amount of games that they started, them not necessarily, being back on track or being dressed for this round, obviously with O'Neal Fisher scoring, you would think, okay, it'd be nice to have him in the lineup. Now he's feeling it. He's kind of in form, feeling good. So it's unfortunate that it doesn't work out. But given the history of the Galaxy and what they've done this season, those aren't huge misses for the Galaxy. So if they do make the playoffs, and those are still the only two players that they have to worry about not being back from quarantine as they go into a one-round elimination game, that's not the worst thing in the world. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a heads up of what's going to happen leading into the next window, which could potentially lead into the playoffs.
Now let's talk about the two biggest quote-unquote stars that are off on international duty for the LA Galaxy. Sebastian Lletget with the United States, Jonathan Dos Santos with Mexico. Let's go Jonathan Dos Santos first, because this is, I think, a little bit more interesting. We can talk about Lletget here in a second, but Jonathan Dos Santos did not play in the first game. He was on the bench. Did not play in the second game. Didn't dress at all, and did not play in the third game. So he went 3 games, didn't play a single minute while he was gone the whole time. He was on the bench for the last game. I tried to sort of pick Greg Vanney's head without knowing exactly how to word my question, but is that okay? Are you happy about that or not? He said, you look at Jonathan Dos Santos and he didn't play. He's chomping at the bit to get back and get ready to play and blah, 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 the whole deal. So, maybe there's some motivation there for Jonathan Dos Santos. Now, you say that, but it's not a good sign. And by the way, shouldn't be a surprise to anybody who's watched them play with the LA Galaxy either.
Yeah, and this is the writing that's been on the wall all season long. And it happened earlier in the season because I think you sent a text that the Galaxy's first game was like 35,000 days ago or something like that. It was something crazy. But basically, it feels like a long time since the season started. But at the start of the season, Sebastian Lletget and Jonathan Dos Santos were away with their national teams, and they were getting key minutes, and they were contributing to their national teams. Lletget was scoring goals and assisting on goals, and he'd say, okay, well, he's in good form with the national team. Maybe he could bring that back to the Galaxy. Same thing with Jonathan Dos Santos. He was getting called in, playing crucial minutes, kind of help being a spark plug for his team, and it was all gravy. When they came back for the Galaxy, you say, okay, that form didn't necessarily transfer. They haven't been, lighting the field on fire, both Lletget and Dos Santos with their playing, but they were still getting those national team call-ups and still performing at the national team. Then, as the season goes on, we've now run into a major cold streak with the LA Galaxy. Jonathan Dos Santos has been nowhere to be found. Sebastian Lletget, with his past selection, just doesn't have that same bite, that same grit. That player that we saw, come over was in 2015 when he arrived, scoring goals and just having that sizzle that doesn't seem to be part of his game anymore.
Right.
And so now they're on a down streak. Their form isn't there. They get called up, and now their form isn't even working on their national teams. So Lletget didn't look like the same. He didn't. National team Lletget didn't show up for the national team. Galaxy Lletget showed up for the team, and Dos Santos didn't even dress. So I'm sure he dressed. He just didn't get dressed to play the game.
He dressed twice.
I just want to make that distinction as well. Yeah, so he wore his clothes, but
yes,
again, just not the Mexico uniform to enter the game. That's my dad joke of the day. Good. We're going to get there. Again, that didn't go well.
No, it's okay. It's fine. David in the chat room says, a bunch of Mexico players didn't play a single minute in those 3 games. Here's the problem, though. Jonathan Dos Santos was getting playing time before. He was, and by the way, he was performing actually just fine with Mexico. That being said, something has to, Lletget played himself out of that third game. Plus, I think with Greg Berhalter rotating, and you see Greg Berhalter's rhythm and his substitutions and sort of how he's trying to go about these games is different than other people in I think it's if you're watching CONCACAF qualifying, because you have a team in it, I think the most interesting thing is to watch how teams prioritize the games, because there's 3. And that 3 of 3 game, like we've seen in Major League Soccer, is a disaster of a game. It's a horrible game. If you watch the U.S. play Costa Rica, Costa Rica came out and was able to run for about 10 minutes in that game. They didn't rotate any of their players, and they just disappeared. And you can listen, it's good for the United States. They rotated, but that hurt them in the second game. But then this is the same thing that you have to look for in what Greg Vanney is trying to do. Christian and I tried to talk on Monday about rotation, how you need to rotate. But if you catch somebody in a mid-rotation, it seems like in CONCACAF that they're going for the first 2 games. Most teams are saying we're not rotating at all, and we're just going, balls to the wall for the first 2 games and getting a result. You saw that with Panama. You saw what happened there, and you're like, okay, that makes some sense to that. But meanwhile, Berhalter's saying, I'm going to prioritize my home games. And I'm going to rotate in the second game so that way I can have fresh legs in the third game also to do that. Having these juxtapositions is really what's happening in Major League Soccer too. So, it's going to happen this week, Eric, because Portland is on Saturday, right? And then the Galaxy head off to Houston, and then it's Dallas, right? So you get these games, rapid fire, all coming. Where does Greg Vanney put the priority? How do you rotate? How do you not rotate? This is super interesting soccer stuff for me. I don't know. This is the soccer nerd.
Well, I was going to say, there's nobody happier than you right now because you have been shouting from the rooftops schedule, hey, this is game 3 of 3. And everyone says, oh, come on, every team's doing game 3 of 3. These are professional players. But you see with the World Cup cycle, you run into the same problem. You're right. Costa Rica, after the first 25 minutes or so, they were done. And so looking back to the last El Tráfico, that second half was just abysmal. And so it was because that was game 3 of 3. And so that's what happens when you put your starters in for a certain amount of time. They tail off towards the end. So, you're justified in seeing some of that rotation, especially midweek if it's away and you have the benefit of that being the case, then you can understand why that rotation is happier. So I'm sure you feel very justified that's what's being mirrored by Berhalter and a lot of the teams that are getting success there, and you see where it's going. So we'll see if the Galaxy prioritize, but because it's the same thing. If you win your games at home, you're in good shape. That's really all you need to do. You hope for some points on the road, some draws. You're gonna get those bounces, but you can't count on it. But if you prioritize all your home games, you really put all your focus, you should be in good shape. That's really where your bread is buttered.
And then if you have a veteran team like Seattle, you can do both because you can say, we'll rotate in the second game a little bit and we'll still win that game. Not a problem because they have smart teams who know how to play. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and you have a coach who's been there for a long time. So you have stability of a system where anyone who comes in, that system's already been rolling. They know what Schmetzer likes. And so, it's easier to plug in. When you have someone who's still trying in the first year to implement it, it's a little harder to do that. When you have someone who's been there, has that longevity, has a pedigree, it makes it easier for everyone to know exactly what their job is, especially when you see a lot of those same names. I think at the beginning of the season, we were saying, Seattle, are they going to do it again? It's the same names and faces. And obviously, Jordan Morris and Ladero, they've had those injuries and they haven't been there. But, you still see a lot of those familiar names, and they're the ones who are getting it done. And I think it is because of that stability and that structure that's there.
Portland has some of that, and that's one of the reasons Portland right. And so you're starting to see that build with them too. And Portland's been on fire. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. Let's get to Greg Vanney, a little bit of the press conference today. So again, as far as availability, everybody who's back from international is available except for Acosta and Fisher. They will not be available for the game. As far as injuries go, and I'll give you that update now, Williams is available, has been back in the mix. Whenever they say back in the mix, it means he's been 100% participant in training. So I would expect to see Williams start coming up, or it's tough because he hasn't had a lot of game minutes, but at the same time, the Galaxy want him. So I imagine he starts in this game.
Yeah. I think the way the Galaxy defense has been unreliable. I think even though he is coming back from injury, I think a change is you need a spark. You need something different in there. And I think you put Williams in there just if for nothing else to mix things up, to have a healthy body. And again, it's against Portland. So when you think about Derek Williams in Portland, there's just that extra little spice that's there. We talk about mind games and things going on that might just be in the back of Portland's head. So I think it would be a smart move to have him start this game.
Williams and Steres start, and that's how it runs through the rest of the season. We'll see about that. Let's see if Greg and I are on the same wavelength. I'm
on board with you there.
We haven't been, but that's okay. And then the other injury is Jorge Viafani, who has the bone bruise. Remember, a hyperextended knee that led to contact with the bones, and then the bone bruise. Still not 100%. Still working to get him back. Still recovering. Hoping to get him back and sort of flowing in the next couple of weeks. So Jorge Viafani not available, which means Nico Hämäläinen will be starting at left back, which means Portland will have an avenue to attack on their right-hand side, the Galaxy's left-hand side. Nico Hämäläinen tends to get caught in defense and in transition, so that's going to be a problem, which means that Derek Williams is going to slide over. He's going to open up stuff in the middle. I can already see the cascading events that happen to a goal. So it'll slide over. They'll get stretched thin. Two guys will come down through the center. Araujo will have been pushed up the field, so he'll be working back, but probably won't get there in time. Steres will be left covering two guys, and it'll be over. So that's
why do we have to watch the game? You've already forecasting it. You know exactly what's going to happen.
It's been such a predictable play, and it's one of the reasons that, like, if you're Vanney in this, I mean, you almost tell Nico, just, you're a defender, you don't get into the offense, just stay back, be somewhat more conservative. But He does get forward, and that is he's better there than he is on defense. So do you play? I know. Hey, this is what coaches have to figure out, right? I mean,
I was gonna say, at the end of the game, don't you want to have more balls in the back of the net than they do? So you need to press forward a little bit to make that happen. So,
if the Galaxy need to score first, Eric, they need to score, which means they have to keep the other team from scoring. So tell Nico he's not allowed to go forward until the Galaxy score first.
No, Nico Hamalainen needs to be involved in the offense. He needs to be whipping those balls in. Chicharito, getting those headers practiced in.
Spectrum's Nikki K was on the call today. She was asking Greg about, sort of what's been happening over the last 14 days. So I figured I'd give you this roughly 2 minutes from Greg Vanny about what they did over this time. I think you can hear some of Greg's frustration in it as well. But here's Greg Vanny from earlier today talking to the media about what they did during these 14 days that he's had off. So much time to have.
Yeah, we gave them a couple days off at the beginning and a couple days off sort of after 5 days of training. Then they had a couple days, and then we go through our normal 4-day preparation for the match that's coming up on the weekend. We emphasized, again, based off of who we had and the numbers, we emphasized just some competition and some playing and trying to keep that level high. We also worked on some stuff on the attacking side in front of the goal, just some of the final passing, some of the timing, some of our movement, getting runners to the right spots, trying to connect our runners and our crossers and our final passers to try to improve upon that timing so we can create better and more dangerous chances. And of course, we spent, as always, a little bit of time on the defending side of things. And anytime you're doing attacking and you're working around the box, you're going to do that against defenders. So we were working on some defending stuff there. What was tough to work on was anything that was really collective, that involved 11 players or involved, larger number opposition, just because we just didn't have the numbers. And it doesn't help us that the USL team is playing every 2 or 3 days every 3 days right now either. So it's not like we can bring those guys in. So we didn't get into much of the larger number stuff. So we tried to break down scenarios in different areas of the field and tried to work through as much detail on that as we could.
All right, there you go. A little Greg Vanny talking to the media today. So again, I thought it was super interesting. He talks even about LA Galaxy too in their hammer. He's saying, the USL team's playing, so we can't even scrimmage them. And they have been having scrimmages, and we know, but he talked about not getting more than 13, 12 players. I mean, as much as we look at these breaks and we say, oh, it's a time for the Galaxy to work on stuff, it's not. And they lose a lot of that whenever they're not able to do the things that they're supposed to do. A little update, by the way, 1-1 top of 8th for the Dodgers and the Giants.
We're talking ourselves into a walk-off for the division series here. It should be fun times, hopefully, for our side and not the other side there. But I will say something, going back to something that Greg said, we worked on some things defensively. So when you think about, where has been kind of the chaos and the Galaxy need that stability, it's Derek Williams, Daniel Stairs, Sega Koulibaly, and Nick DePuy. They weren't gone on international duty. They were there. So hopefully whatever discussions and whatever trainings were going on, they had some time to kind of gel and get on the same page. Obviously, he was talking about, some of the attacking pieces and crossers. And all I heard was Nico Hamalainen needs to cross the ball in the middle. That's all I heard.
That's what you
when
heard
he was talking
that?
about his crossers. So obviously that part I think has been there, and we've talked about it with the Galaxy in the past few games. The chances have been there. It's that defensive shape and not making those mistakes at the end and kind of helping with that transition. That's where has been the struggle. So I think the players who will play a big part of that were there. And then I just want to point out something that was dropped in the chat as well. I think Patrick dropped it in there. So JDS, if you want to take the rosy side of it, is, he was snubbed by Tata, so maybe he is going to be fired up and say, okay, now I'm ready to get back. I didn't play with my national team. I didn't even, get dressed to play with them. So maybe this is my opportunity. I need to show something because there's another World Cup cycle in a month. And I need, maybe if I'm not playing for an extension with the LA Galaxy, maybe I'm at least playing to have a spot on the roster to make myself known so I can stay on for a World Cup.
Yeah, I can see that. And, it's funny because Greg was asked about the break and he goes, does it help you or hurt you? And he's like, I guess we're going to find out. He goes, and even I asked, about the travel, is it better for guys? And he's like, there's no formula for this stuff. He goes, you sort of just got to look at the guys and look at what they're able to do and sort of how they go back and forth. And, it's just, how are they recovered and how are they mentally whenever they come back? There is no way to, predict that, Ryan is ready to go because he played 180 minutes and, they won a game and he's that type of thing. So there's just no way to predict any of this stuff. I did think some of the stuff from Sasha was super interesting. Sasha Kloese was the player who joined us today to talk a little bit about it. The LA Galaxy, about Portland, a whole bunch of things. The talk, there's some normal talk in there, and I think it was interesting to sort of hear one of the questions. Damian Calhoun had an unbelievably good question, and Damian always finds like these little gems every once in a while, and you could see that Sasha just started, like, the wheels started turning, and you're like, oh, this is going to be good. But Damian was saying, hey, you've been a soccer player for a while. I always hate that all the questions of Sasha are to start out with, hey, you're old. Now it's said in a different way, but it's like, and I do it too. So it's not like but it's true. You have to come from that.
To be fair, with his hat and the mustache, he just gives dad vibes all day long. So like, I get it. Also, it's, you don't want to be rude, but at the same time, you look at him on the screen like, hey, dad's here, get the Sunny D, it's going to be a fun time.
Okay, I would tell you that I was efforting. I always like that word. I was efforting behind the scenes to try to get Sasha on the show tonight, because he's one of the guys I'd love to talk to, and I think he'd be great, and the listeners would really enjoy him. And he couldn't do tonight because he was coaching his kids' teams, right? Because of course he's in dad mode,
dad of the year,
and that's fine. I'll keep working on it, even if I have to do like some weekend or like off time, and I record it and I try to save it. Really want to have Sasha on. And by the way, Sasha talks about this, but Greg hinted at that Sasha was working on his B license, and that sometimes he grabs the office right next to Greg and works on his license there after trainings and stuff like that to sort of get prepared. So I mean, you can see Sasha question now. Sasha was like, hey, I just want everybody to know that I think of myself as a player still, like a player first. He goes, but obviously I'm looking towards the future and what that means and the whole deal. But it was interesting to hear that Greg says sometimes it's nice to just have Sasha come into my office and we just sit there and we talk about, game plans and stuff like that. And he goes, and then he gets to see it from my side. And he goes, and then that helps him sort of communicate to everybody. And Greg said, he had known Sasha as an opposing coach for so many years, and he'd always thought really nice things about him. And I don't want to play that whole part, but basically he goes, Sasha is like a better person than I ever knew, and he's the most unselfish player that I've ever met. Like, it just, there was a lot of there was like a 8-minute talk about Sasha Kloese in here, and that usually means something. That's important, and I think people want to underestimate Sasha Kloese because he doesn't play all the time. And he even talked about it. He goes, yeah, I get frustrated. I think I should start every game. It's like that. So I have to get used to that.
And it's one of those things we say, oh, well, you can't expect 90 minutes from Sasha. But at the same time, when you look at when he's been brought on, he's been solid this season. I think when he's been on the field this season, I think he's played better than he played last season. And he played more minutes last season, but I think his quality of play has been better this season. But just going back to what you said, I think what you just described, we just heard the origin story of Sasha Kloese, assistant coach, LA Galaxy, 2023.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't kick him out the door now. He won't come on the podcast.
I said 2 years from now. It's 2023. I'm giving him one more season. Like I said, his quality of play has been there, and that locker room experience, you can't find that everywhere. And so I think it's crucial to have on the team.
So Sasha said, somebody asked, he started with something, and he goes, I'm not worried about this team. He goes, I know that sounds weird. He goes, I know what we're in and what the winless streak is. He's like, but I believe in this team. I see what's happening. We're just not getting the results. But I know how we're playing. And he goes, I've been doing this long enough to know. Well, Damian came in and said, hey, do you remember a time in your career that was sort of similar to this whenever you had it? And Sasha gave, I think, a pretty good answer. So we'll just play that instead of me trying to recap it.
The first thing that comes to mind is I'm trying to remember the correct year. I think it was probably the 2013-14 season at Anderlecht. And we had been good for the first half of the season, and then during the second half of the season after the winter break, we had a really poor run of form away from home. And we did not win a lot of games away from home. And in Belgium, there's a playoff system there where you play 10 games at the end of the season. The top 6 make the playoffs, and you play everybody once home and away. And after our first game of the playoffs, we lost away to Standard Liège, and our coach was fired. So the assistant coach took over with 9 games left. And on the cover of the newspaper that day after we lost, it said, Anderlecht will not be champions this season. And I remember I took out the front page of the newspaper and I hung it up in my locker because I thought, I believe we still have a chance, and I hope that everybody else in the locker room sees this every day to know that we still have a chance. And in those last 9 games, I think we won 8 and drew 1 and ended up winning the title on the final day. So that was something where it was like, it would have been easy for everyone to buckle, and it would have been easy for us to say, okay, this is like, it's over this season. Maybe we'll finish second, maybe we'll finish third, and that'll be that. But I think I give a lot of credit to the coach for staying, believing in the team, and then for the players and believing in ourselves and keep pushing through. So I feel that right now. Like I said, I'm not worried about our team. I've been through this before, and it takes a good run of form. It takes one big game. It takes one big play to change the outcome and change the feeling within the team. So that's where I feel like we could be at right now.
All right, so there you go, a little. So again, the leadership qualities, Eric. I mean, we don't, and we talk, and people want to discount this, right? People want to discount what Sasha Kljestan brings because he doesn't play that much. So how does he really affect the team? Well, Greg Vanney will tell you that he affects the team greatly on a regular basis, that he is, one of the reasons and a leader in that locker room, and that he, talks to the younger players and he helps them. And you've heard Sasha talk about being, availability is a skill, like all these important lessons that people need to have to learn to do that. And he's been a champion and he knows what it takes. And again, I see him not panicking, and part of that is that, again, he's been here before and he's not going to panic. He's not one of those guys. Yeah. It can always be turned around. It can always be rectified. But having the whole, bulletin board material. I mean, Eric, could you maybe all you need to do is yell in? Can you? Yeah, go ahead.
We're on the same wavelength, because I was going to say, if all I knew is that they needed bulletin board material, I could say it right now. The LA Galaxy will not win MLS Cup this season. It is not going to happen. And I could say that with supreme confidence. So clip it, post it, do what you need to do. Get that going in the locker room. I don't think it's going to happen.
Make it.
If that's all they needed to hear, I could have done that a long time ago. If that's all we needed to have a good time. But I also want to point out to the Euro snobs out there, for people saying, "Oh, MLS with their silly American playoff structure, they should adopt a European style." Last I checked, Belgium is in Europe, so we do have a European style. We do have a playoff, and so because they have a playoff as well, so it's not unheard of, not the craziest thing in the world.
Top 10, I think it's the top 6 teams go in, as he said. Top 6 teams go into a playoff, and they play 10 games at the end, and that's what ends up, determining who it is. And Anderlecht went on that run and ended up winning about that. I asked Sasha. He talked about the away form, and I was the next question after Damien after this, and so I was all fired up about this answer. And then I'm like, well, Sasha, you talked about your away form with Anderlecht and how that needed to improve and how that did. I go, but talk about the home form as well. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I did the math. The LA Galaxy haven't won a home game in what will be 72 days. If they win on the 73rd day against Portland, the last time they won at home was August 4th, I believe, and it was 1-0 to RSL. That was the last time that August 4th, September 4th, October 4th. I mean, you can see where it's going. And so I asked him about that. And I said, how important is the home form going to be to these next 6 games? 3 home games, 3 away games for the Galaxy. There are some winnable games in there. Dallas is a winnable game. Portland is a toss-up game, but you're at home. You would hope maybe you have the advantage in that. I mean, if you're looking at the 2 forms, the Galaxy shouldn't be Portland, right? Because Portland has been on a tear. But
the one benefit, and we'll talk about that when we get to the game preview, is we had a bit of a break, and so Portland didn't have as much of a break as the Galaxy, but they weren't going those back-to-back running games off and running the score up. So Portland, whatever momentum they have, if you believe in momentum, that was brought to a little bit of a halt, and so that's where you say maybe the Galaxy has an opening there, because if you are going based on previous form, Portland should win this game.
They should. Let's hear what Sasha had to say about the home form and how important that is. Again, my question.
It's really important. Obviously, we'd love to win all these last 6 games and get ourselves a home game in the playoffs too, because I just think that coming to play here is a difficult place to play. The field is big. The best Galaxy teams in the past were the teams that when they played here, I think every other team came into this stadium thinking in the back of their head, we probably aren't going to win today. And that was a goal we set ourselves at the beginning of the season, was being a team that when we played at home, that no one came in here and beat us. And when teams come and start to beat you at home, then other teams start to believe that they can. So we need to stomp that out right away. We need these last 3 games to, I'd love to get 9 points from these last 3 home games of the season and really give us that momentum going into the playoffs, that if we end up having a game here, that we know we're going to win it.
I think, obviously optimism there, and you want to see optimism, right? I mean, you don't want Sasha to say, "No, we're not going to win any of those games," right? No, we're done. We're phoning it in.
That's the other side of it. Not only is it dad vibes, it's veteran vibes. No one is going to say, "Oh man, we're really struggling and we can't find it." He's going to say, "No, we got to get it right back on the right track. We got to win our home games." He's saying all the right things. But again, that's what you need. You need someone pumping you up making you feel like getting in that winner's mindset, because that's something the Galaxy haven't had in their last 9 games. Haven't had a winning mindset.
Yeah, the LA Galaxy. Hold on, I have the actual stat here.
Charts. Bring the charts.
No, I didn't have any charts. But the Galaxy haven't won at home in 72 days. We talked about that. The Galaxy are 0-2-3 at home since then. So they've gotten 3 points out of 5 games at home since they beat RSL 1-0. That has to change. And listen, Portland. I keep seeing people say that it's a must-win against Portland. It's not. Portland's above them. Here's the problem: is that obviously there are other teams below the LA Galaxy that can jump up. Now, what did we see this last weekend? Whenever there were games, is that none of the teams that were supposed to jump up jumped up. And guess what? That's why those teams are in those positions, right? I mean, it's not unfair to say that it could end just like this, where it's just really inconsistent, and it's inconsistent through those teams that are all in the playoffs that are all inconsistent teams, which is why they're sort of in this, limbo zone. So 1 or 2 wins could do a whole bunch to cementing, a playoff position. Now, you heard Sasha said he wants a home playoff game. Well, if they want a home playoff game, then you need to get 9 points out of that you get at home, and you need to pick up a couple on the road.
And it needs to be against the Portlands and the Salt Lakes and those teams that are sitting above you. Because, I was of the opinion earlier in the season that, the top 2 teams, Colorado and Seattle, were going to run away with it. And now it looks like Kansas City's in that mix as well. So let them run away with it and just try to go for that number 4 spot, possibly that number 3 spot. Now it looks like, maybe the top 4 are locked up, from 39 points with the LA Galaxy to 46 points of the Portland Timbers. That seems like too much of a hill to climb. So I think a home playoff game is a little too optimistic. I don't think that's going to happen. So now you're battling just to stay in the playoff position, and it doesn't really matter spots 5 through 7. It's pretty congested. But like you said, it's not a do or die game or a must win game, because it all comes down to Minnesota, Vancouver, LAFC, maybe in the mix, San Jose, maybe in the mix, but also they're going to be playing each other. Yes. So everyone's going to take points from one another. Maybe, if you end up with some draws, then both teams lose out of the points. So we're not in that must-win scenario yet. We need like a third category. It's not a must-win, but
it's a very
it'd
important
be really
game.
Nice to win. It'd be very nice to win.
It's very
helpful, and it'd be a statement win.
Somebody said this is something the Galaxy have talked about. We've talked about on the show. The Galaxy have not won a big game this year. This is a big game. You want to win this game to get some momentum. I'm not saying they can, but I'm saying that they should have the ability to fight for this game and pull out a result. Of course, they're going to have to score first in order to freaking do that. All right. So, I mean, there's a lot of formulas that get the LA Galaxy to 9 points out of their last 3 home games. All of them include scoring first. All right. I think that's pretty key for the LA Galaxy and what they're trying to do. Winnable games, though.
How about just scoring period? Yeah, like more than one goal.
Nice.
That'd be nice. Yeah,
that would be nice. As Patrick says, the playoffs are already underway. All right, and he's not wrong, by the way. And they have been. They've just been boring playoffs so far because there's a lot of teams who aren't winning.
It's a non-elimination playoff is what's happening right now.
Right, they're jockeying.
There's a race for sure.
We can see it happening, and it's going that direction. Let's talk a little bit about the 22 under 22 and that list that came out. Remember, MLS writers and some outside media and some other people vote on these. I didn't get a vote. Just again, I don't want you guys to think I vote on this stuff because most of the MLS stuff I don't get votes on, which is fine because I cannot watch 27 teams play or 26 teams play every week. It's impossible. So there's some stuff in here. Good news for the LA Galaxy is that they have 2 players that were listed on the 22 under 22. The bad news is that whenever MLS was putting their recap of all of the teams that had 2 players from it, they forgot to put the LA Galaxy on it, apparently counting to 2. They needed to take their shoes off or something. I'm not sure. However that happened, they didn't put them on there. That being said, Julian Araujo is the highest ranked LA Galaxy player, and he's at 5. So that's a good spot for Julian Araujo to be, except that he's underrated at 5, which is fun to sort of say, but I'm dead serious about it.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with him being at 5, but seeing Brian Rodriguez above him and the struggles that he's had in this league, I don't think that's fair. I think Julian Araujo, I think the case can be made, and I would make the case that he's been the LA Galaxy's MVP this season. He's been their most consistent player, their player who's had the most impact on the field. I think he's been their MVP. So I think he could probably be higher than 5 on the list. I'm okay with 5 if there are some other players who are more deserving. But I don't see it with the players they put above him. The one thing that I will say, and I know we'll talk about him as well, is that when this list has come out in previous seasons, Efrain Alvarez always has been very highly touted, and we've always kind of squawked a little bit as LA Galaxy fans, like Araujo needs to get his respect. He really is deserving of it. And so to see them flop positions, I think it's kind of, everyone's kind of seeing what Galaxy fans have been seeing in recent seasons. So to see, Araujo jump Efrain Alvarez, and he's in the number 5 spot, Alvarez to the number 12 spot. Again, not to say that Alvarez doesn't have a lot of promise, but just as far as consistency and performance in the league, it hasn't been there as good as Julian's performance has been there this season.
So I think that's right. The number 1 was Ricardo Pepi. I will say this, and I don't think I'm out of turn here. If Julian Araujo had chosen to play for the U.S. men's national team, which he hasn't, and he went to Mexico instead. But if he had, he could have had a similar impact as Pepi in terms of coming on and making real performances in World Cup qualifiers. I don't know Mexico well enough to say that would happen with Mexico if he was there, but Julian Araujo is absolutely a national team caliber player and could affect things. Now, listen, goal scorers are always going to be ranked above defenders. Yeah. Let's be very honest about that. Daryl DK for Orlando spent most of the early time of the season on loan, by the way. Is ranked above him. I can see that. Daryl DK is a guy who's going to get sold to Europe here very quickly.
And when he was on loan, he was scoring goals in bunches and performing. And Pepe, a lot of this could be with the impact he's had with the national team and kind of being a little bit of a savior, but he's also had those performances in MLS as well. So I can live with those too. The Brian Rodriguez one is more puzzling to me because when he was on loan, he wasn't scoring goals in bunches. And in MLS, he hasn't been scoring goals. So I'm not seeing it in that regard. And part of that is because I hate LAFC, of course. But also, Julian Araujo is more deserving and needs to be above Brian Rodriguez on this list.
Yeah, James Sands is in there as well, midfielder defender for New York City, who has been very good this year. Again, I don't know of anybody, I think Pepe certainly for Dallas. I understand it. Jim Curtin for Philadelphia was sort of like, certainly momentum and sort of like the flavor of the week takeover for some of this stuff as well. And
that's fair.
And Ricardo Pepi has been on fire and doing all the stuff that he's supposed to do for FC Dallas, been at the U.S. men's national team, playing for them. So I understand it. Daryl DK, understand it. That's fine. James Sands, I won't argue. Brian Rodriguez, I absolutely will. So Julian Araujo is somewhere between 3 and 4 on this list, and he was ranked 5. So I don't have a problem with that.
It's not a glaring mistake. It's in the neighborhood.
It's close. The other player obviously is Efrain Alvarez, and coming in at the 12th spot. I feel like Efrain Alvarez always gets overrated on these things. And let me preface that by saying that looking at this list and going through, I can honestly tell you that I don't. It's hard to sort of differentiate whenever you start getting into some of these guys below this certain mark because they're just not guys you see every single game. They're not guys that get played a whole bunch. And if you're going to give Efrain Alvarez credit for something, it's that he has had, I think he had 13 starts so far this season. He's had a lot of playing time this year. And he has taken a step up. So if he's at 12, that's fine. I would probably think he's lower down that, but I'm not going to argue. I really don't want to sit here and he should be at 13 because, Paxton Pomykal should be ahead of him, that type of thing.
Well, the thing is that there's only a certain number of players that are under 22, so it makes it a little bit harder to make that. But if you can put that blurb back up, MLS being the most MLS thing ever, what we're saying is Efrain Alvarez, he's had more starts. He has shown more promise this season. We're seeing the flashes of that Efrain that we were promised. And what do they put as their last blurb? Just ask Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who sung his praises in 2019. So why is he on this list? Because Zlatan sung his praises, 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And so that's just the most MLS thing to me. It's like, well, Zlatan said he's good, so let's put him on our list. Well, make it nothing to do with how he's played this season and how he's taken a jump up, which I think he has. And that's why he should be on the list. Obviously not above Araujo, but he should be on the list. And I think that's fair. But that just made me chuckle that, of course they would talk about that one little blurb from Zlatan 2 years ago, and that justifies putting him on the list. Yep. I think if I were to put him on the list, I'd say it's because he has a sponsorship deal with Northgate Market. And that's just living the dream right there. And whenever you do sponsors ad for Northgate Market and doing TikTok dances, you're in. Efrain, good to you. You're living the dream.
You want it when you grow up. You want to be Efrain, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's good. No, I mean, listen. Efrain Alvarez in the last couple of games has still produced and is still taking little steps forward. He has been able to control games more. He has been more dangerous, a bunch of things. He has absolutely taken a step forward this year. The hard part is how much of a ceiling does he still have, right? Because he has no right foot. We know that, and we've seen it. We've also seen him dribble the ball right out of bounds multiple times and try to do magic things. And listen, it's fun, and I don't mind attackers taking more of a risk in some of that stuff.
Audacious, someone who's audacious and tries something silly than someone who passes it back and doesn't take the shot on goal. I'll take someone dribbling out of bounds because they're trying to go towards the goal than someone who doesn't even bother to even try. So I'll give him the credit there. I'll take someone who's audacious.
And instead of Sebastian Lletget turning around and running at the goal, his own goal with the ball. Yes, you didn't say that.
I didn't say that name.
Okay, but that's
you came to that conclusion.
I'm just. It seemed like you were shouting out somebody, so I just wanted to make sure that I got it correct on that. So anyway, so that's your 22 under 22. Some interesting things there. Just go read the list. It is absolutely 100% a talk piece, and we talked about it. So good job, they did it. And I think anybody who watches those guys. And can have a real list. And there's people who certainly spend time watching all these guys and can do that. But all those guys doing that, I think that's amazing that they can do that, because I can't sit there and tell you that there's 22 players under 22 that I could ever rank in any sort of order without like taking a week off from my actual job and like watching film on all these guys. And by the way, highlights don't show most of these guys in there because they're not scoring goals. I mean,
it goes to the Julian Araujo. Julian Araujo's stats are not going to tell you that he's one of the best players in the league. You really have to watch him on the field to see the command that he has on the field. That's where you see it. So you're right. You credit to them for being able to spot that, with the eyeball test, because it's not always on the stats.
It is not. Let's see. I wanted to get some things for season ticket holders. Let's go over some stuff. A meet and greet with Juninho and Marcelo is coming up. That is at this Portland game from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Connecta booth inside Soccer Fest. So you can meet Juninho and Marcelo. All of these things you have to RSVP with your season ticket reps. So make sure you do that. Extra time going on October 16th. Is that really October 16th? Like that already happened, right? Or no, that's coming up. That's
that's Saturday.
That's Saturday. So they're having extra time as well, which is after the whistle, everybody, season ticket members are invited to make their way up to the American Express Stadium Club for extra time. Eric, is that a good time? I can't remember. Do you remember?
Unfortunately, I don't remember either, but I think some people had some good times there. I was there, but I couldn't tell you if it was a good time or not.
All right, just checking.
Saying.
You decided to do extra time the night before our live show, if I remember correctly. So I just wanted to see how that was going. 10:23 coming up, so I believe that's the FC Dallas game. But it says they're having a tailgate. So what are Saturdays for? Cracking up a cold one with your fellow Galaxy brothers and sisters. That's what prior to the match on October 23rd, please join for some tailgating fun with your fellow season ticket members. The tailgate will take place in the northeast tailgate area just behind Galaxy TV. Stay tuned for more details again. And then 11/7, they're doing Feel the Berm. Season ticket. We have Feel the Berm in. Yeah, I was going to say, in the chat room, he's like, hey, look, it's me. Feel the Berm is going on again. Season ticket members will have exclusive access to the grass berm throughout the game on November 7th. The first 400 season ticket members on the berm on November 7th will receive a drink voucher valid on the berm top. So they're pouring beer and drinks at the top. You're welcome to kick back and take in the game with the grass berm or return to your seats. Come Feel the Berm on MLS Decision Day. So that's it. That seems like it was kind of cool too. I know people who went to that before. It looked like that's a good time.
Yeah, it's an underrated spot. You think, well, it's not close to the field; it's kind of further up. But I think with the view you get of the field and that vantage point being above, Victoria Block, I think it's an underrated spot. So if you're a season ticket member and you want to take advantage of that, I highly recommend the Feel the Berm moment. And then we'll see if Feel the Berm goes to Feel the Berm.
We'll Feel the Berm. Feel the Berm. Does Feel the Berm have a shirt that says Feel the Berm and then can wear it on the thing?
Sure.
Playoff campaign video shoot as well. Again, contact your season ticket member. There's actually an email that came out and says if you're interested in this, but the season ticket members are needed for the 2021 playoff campaign. Look at them. Aren't they being ambitious? Video shoots will take place at Dignity Health Sports Park as well as other locations around LA. Members who are interested in volunteering for a video shoot should fill out the interest form below for more information. So a video shoot interest form for you there. You can do it and go ahead and do that. So I wanted to get through that stuff. Let's get through just standings real quick, Eric, and then we'll get to our preview of the Portland game as we're already over the hour mark, which is good. New England running away with everything. Expect them to keep winning. Their Supporter Shield winner they're going to clinch basically a home field playoff for the MLS Cup. It was interesting. I was in a really not fun discussion today through the entire day because I responded to a couple tweets about Bruce Arena, and then was basically said that all of my experience with Bruce Arena, which was covering Bruce Arena from 2009 until 2016, was not really like that wasn't a good enough thing. I needed more. It didn't count. I needed more experience to be able to talk intelligently about Bruce Arena, and stuff like that. And it was interesting. There's some people, and I could certainly understand why they have this view, but they think that Bruce Arena and his shtick that he has is maybe a bad thing for the league, right? Because he's not inviting people in and doing all this stuff, right? Yeah.
He's MLS Belichick, in my opinion. He's someone who, upon first glance, you're like, oh, this is not a warm and fuzzy personality. I don't like this, and it kind of off puts you the right way. But once you're around it enough, you kind of say, oh, okay, I see what's happening here. You get a peek behind the curtain, you see how he is, and there's a very dry, kind of dark sense of humor
there is
with Bruce Arena. And so I think if you're not aware of that, he comes across as pretty gruff and kind of rude at points. But if you know him, you know that there's a little glimmer underneath those comments that he makes. He's not saying it, to be rude. He's saying it because he's, either frustrated or trying to make light of it using a very particular Bruce-esque type of humor that if you're not around it a lot, you don't get it.
Bruce, nothing is a big deal to Bruce. Nothing. There is no big deal. There's nothing. Oh, winning the Supporter Shield is not what we're here for. This is what Bruce said. Winning the Supporter Shield is not where we're focused on the playoffs. Well, of course, because they've already wrapped up the Supporter Shield. Basically, they haven't, but they will. Yeah. They wrap up the Supporter Shield and they'll run away with it. But of course, he's already got his guys thinking about the playoffs and do a whole bunch of things. Everybody, and again, if you haven't spent time covering Bruce, and I was a young person whenever I started covering Bruce, so really he didn't have to give me any respect, and he won't give anybody respect who he doesn't think earns it, but you have to earn it, and that's part of it. And once you have done that and you understand that, Bruce is you get the game that Bruce is playing. And so yes, I'll tell you this, I know for a fact that he still texts and reaches out to some of the beat reporters that covered him at the LA Galaxy. He still talks to them on a regular basis because he had that relationship with everybody. He knows them. And so he can do that. And so, that's not something you see from Bruce Arena. Nobody ever hears about that, right? But it's one of those things. Bruce knows everything that's going on. He pretends and plays stupid sometimes. He understands everything that goes on, and nothing's a big deal. Winning MLS Cup is not a big deal. It's about winning a game in front of it, the whole deal. So, having said all that, looking at the Eastern Conference, that was just yeah. I just
have to point this out. Marvin G in the chat says that Dignity Health Sports Park needs to change its name to Bruce Arena. And I think I'm on board. He said the Panda suggested it, but I think I like it. Bruce Arena or Arena Field, just to confuse people. I'm on board. I like it.
Okay, cool. We'll see how that goes. I'm sure that's next on the things to be named.
That was a very Bruce response to my shout out to the chat there.
65 points for New England, Nashville at 47, Philadelphia at 45, Orlando 42, DC 40 points. New York City has dropped considerably at 40 points. Considerably. They're down a little bit from where they have been. Sort of like the LA Galaxy a little bit. Montreal at 40 points. Atlanta just barely. Remember how bad Atlanta was? And all of a sudden you start winning games and you can jump right through all these standings?
Yeah, there's a guy who used to say peaking at the right time. I think it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
We don't have that guy on the podcast anymore.
No,
we kicked him off.
Playing the role of that guy.
Will be. You look at the Western Conference standings, Seattle 57 points, Kansas City 52 points, Colorado 51, Portland 46, Salt Lake 39, Galaxy 39, Minnesota 38, Vancouver 37, LAFC 34, San Jose 33. You should watch that San Jose LAFC game. I know you'll be voting for the earth to open up and swallow the stadium, but at the same time, that's an important one to sort of watch. The best result there is a draw. Everybody knows that it's a draw. Just keep those that way. There's not points being sort of shuffled upwards. You're going to want to watch the Vancouver game. You're going to want to watch that Minnesota game. So there's a whole bunch of things in here that sort of affect the LA Galaxy, what RSL does, what the Galaxy do. Going to 42 points for the LA Galaxy would be a huge jump while keeping Portland from gaining any more points. Yes, Portland is up there, but if you want to make them nervous, start winning games and take points away from them at the same time. The gap closes by 3 points, and all of a sudden something, can sort of happen there. Whether it does happen, how it happens, that's all interesting stuff. LA Galaxy still in 13th place in the Supporters Shield standings. Atlanta right below them. Craziness. Joseph Martinez. What do you know? Start scoring goals. Everything. Chicharito. That's why this can all turn around. If Chicharito starts banging in goals again, you could see the LA Galaxy jump and get some of those points rather quickly. So a busy Saturday, I should point out, for the LA Galaxy for MLS. A lot of games being played. A couple games on Sunday. Just sort of keep your eye on those, and you can watch those. There's Vancouver hosting Sporting Kansas City. So again, that's a good matchup for the Galaxy. You would expect that Sporting Kansas City can go on the road on turf and do something to Vancouver. Maybe you can't get them to lose, but you can take points from them.
Yeah, I think that's why I said those top teams, you're rooting for them to run away with it, because you're relying on the other bottom teams to lose those games. And like you said, with your LAFCs and your San Jose's, you're basically rooting for Triple H to come down the aisle and smack them both with chairs and disqualify them. A draw would be the equivalent to that decision. So unfortunately, I think what you're saying is that Supporter Shield is out of reach.
It feels that way. It feels that way.
I think a home playoff game is out of reach looking at the points. So you want, except for when you play them, Seattle, Kansas City, Colorado, you want them to win out with every game they play, because I think that's going to be your best opportunity. You don't want your Vancouvers or your San Jose's stealing points from those top teams, and it's going to get tricky, especially with Seattle having clinched the spot. Depending on the results with Kansas City and Colorado, Seattle might start resting players and not taking those games as seriously, and that could also put the Galaxy in trouble, because if they're resting players against a Minnesota team or a Vancouver team who's can get hot at the right time and win 2 games and jump the Galaxy and knock them out of the playoffs, that's a dangerous spot to be in. So win your home games, take care of business.
Gamble on the road. Gamble on the road. Why not? Why not try to find some stuff? Schedule for the Galaxy again. Portland coming up 7:30 p.m. We're going to talk about that game here in mere seconds. Houston, that game away. Talk about a winnable home or winnable road game. That is one of them that you're looking and you sort of say, okay, but again, short rest, midweek, Wednesday, Houston, Texas.
Wednesday in Texas at Houston. Yeah, I don't. To quote is it Han Solo? Am I going to mess this up? Probably. I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah. I can't tell you. I don't know. There's lots of people who've said that in movies, I imagine. So you could have been quoting any of them. So if anybody comes at you, just feel like it was this other guy.
Playing the role of Han Solo.
LA Galaxy FC Dallas 10-23. That's third game of 3. You want to talk about a game that will be interesting to watch. Remember Galaxy got played off the field in Dallas whenever they played. Ricardo Pepi had the hat trick. That was one of the reasons that everybody suddenly knew who Pepi was. So again, U.S. men's national team should probably thank the LA Galaxy for not showing up to that game. Yeah. Kansas City away. That's one of those tough games that you're like, that's not a winnable game. Seattle away is not a winnable game, and then you come home. Decision day 11-7 against Minnesota. Galaxy looking and staring at their second longest winless streak in franchise history if they do not win on Saturday. That's an interesting one to sort of look at. Look at 2017, had 10 game winless streak. 2006 had a 10 game winless streak. 2008, which was a horrible year, had a 12 game winless streak. All of these things are possibilities. I just want to keep pointing that out. These are possibilities, looking at how the LA Galaxy are going right now.
But that's also why you've been very calm and not hitting the panic button and saying, it's not do or die. But when you look at those streaks and those years that you mentioned, 2017, 2006, 2008, those are historically bad years for the LA Galaxy. So if this team is on that list, that tells me that this is a historically bad LA Galaxy team. And does that match what we've seen at the beginning of the year? No, but there's going to be more sample size of the poor play than the good play. And so you're going to lean in that direction and say, a record-breaking unbeaten streak or a winless streak, that's right on par with those other years. Maybe this is a bad LA Galaxy team. And so this is their opportunity. While not a make or break or do or die game, this is their chance to prove that trend wrong.
It very well could be. Let's get to the Portland game now. 7:30 p.m. is your kickoff time. It is a Saturday night. Look at that. October 16th. The game's on Spectrum Sportsnet. That's where you can find it. Will be blacked out on ESPN Plus unless you are out of market. So be prepared for that. I know that Kobe Jones and Joe Tutino and I believe Nikki K will all be there for this game. And by the way, we should sort of count down. These are some of the last Spectrum games as well. That contract expires at the end of this year. So it is finito. Very soon. So if you're happy about that, you can be happy about that. I understand why, the whole deal. There's lots of interesting, by the way, in the Discord, if you go, there's lots of interesting MLS rights talk about TV deals and stuff like that if you really want to get lost into little things. I tend to go way into detail on this because I want to know how it actually works if you get rid of regional sports networks, and like who's going to pay for the home team to video all this stuff and upload it, and who's going to be the play-by-play people, and blah, blah, blah. Like there's all these questions that suddenly become in if you don't have a regional sports network. So that's interesting. Portland Timbers come in having absolutely destroyed this league in recent times. Winners, I think they're unbeaten in their last 8 games. And I think they only have 1 draw in those 8 games. So having said that, there's only been 1 draw. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the stats. They are unbeaten in 8. They're coming in on a 4-game win streak. So it's been 4 games since they drew. Their last draw was 2-2 against Colorado. So even when they drew, it was against one of the top Western teams. And their last loss came on August 21st. It was away at Austin. So something that the Galaxy also did, away at Austin, dropping points. That was the last time the Portland loss was away at Austin. And you look at, some of the scores that they've had. There was a 2-1 beating LAFC, 6-1 beating Real Salt Lake, another 2-1 versus LAFC. So they've just kind of been handling their business, beating Miami 1-0. So they're coming in on a very hot streak right now. They haven't lost in a long time. So, makes it interesting.
Well, we talk about the LA Galaxy and winning games. The last time these two teams met was on July 30th, which, by the way, Eric, is very close to August 4th. So really, when you look at it, the last time the LA Galaxy had won back-to-back home games was on July 30th and on August 4th. And that was a 4-1 win for the Galaxy. Greg Vanney talked a little bit about it, saying that he can sort of what were you saying? Sorry.
The Dodgers scored. So
the Dodgers scored.
Doing a signal.
Oh, home run. Okay, I was like, do I need to wrap it up? Wait, who's in charge of this show, sir? I'm like, I can mute you.
I'm celebrating. Continue.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
They're on opposite ends. The Galaxy hasn't won in a long time.
Yeah. By the way, 2-1, top of the 9th for the Dodgers versus Giants. Just in case you're wondering, and you're probably not because you're listening to this show. So the last time they met was July 30th, 4-1 win. Greg Vanney talked about how if they can get up early on Portland, that they are a team you can take advantage of if you do that. But that was a game the Galaxy got up early and were able to score multiple goals. It's probably one of the best wins the Galaxy have had this entire season. So I think the Galaxy actually match up well against Portland. I think Portland has problems on the defensive end, much like the LA Galaxy. In fact, their goals against numbers are separated by 1 goal. I think the goal differential for Portland is -1. So it's not like they're scoring a whole bunch of goals more, but they are, as you said, taking care of business. The 2-1 win over LAFC, a 1-0 win against Miami, which, by the way, Miami had like 7 chances to win that game. And didn't take like any of them, which is very Miami of them for sure. But since the LA Galaxy beat Portland 4-1, LA is 2-5-5, 12 games, 11 points. Portland is 8-2-3, 13 games, 27 points. So it's very
polar opposites.
They're going to completely different directions, but you can see, you start winning games, you can pick up, guess what? You can pick up points. Oh, gee, thanks, Josh. That's why I tune in for this really good analysis that you have is, win games, get points, score goals more than the other person, win games. Yeah, it's great. Great stuff.
But to your point, going back to the CONCACAF component, the Portland streak right now, they have away, home, and then away again. So if they are valuing their home points, they're maybe not putting, the full A+ team away at LA. They're trying to bank those home points. They play Vancouver midweek at home. So maybe that's where they want to guarantee 3 points. And then they go away to Colorado after that. So maybe that can play in the Galaxy's favor, depending on how Savarese, sets up his team. So that's just another consideration to make as well.
Again, in my effort to try and be a little more in depth on some of the teams the LA Galaxy are playing. By the way, Gabriel says, gave us a $2 super chat, said, would the Galaxy be happy with a tie against Portland? It's not the worst result in the world from a very, but at this point you really do need wins.
Yeah.
If the Galaxy go unbeaten in the last 6 games and they pick up 3 wins out of that and draws and the rest of those, I don't know that you can 9 points plus another 12 points is not a horrible, that right around 51 points. I kept saying 51 might be their number. So 51 points is not horrible. Again, it kind of matters what happens around them. Chat room was nice enough to say as well that some of the teams below the LA Galaxy have games in hand. That's something to keep an eye on and sort of how it goes as well. So the Galaxy can win all their games and still technically drop out of the playoffs because the people below have some games in hands. Go ahead.
The teams with games in hand are Dallas and Houston, and they're far below the LA Galaxy in terms of catching up on them. So everyone who's in striking distance of the LA Galaxy, they're caught up on games played, at least at the standings that I took as of 8 p.m. Pacific time, right before the show started. So there are some teams with games in hand, but I don't think they're teams that are in striking distance of the Galaxy.
Yeah, technically Dallas and Houston have played one more game than the LA Galaxy.
Oh, yeah, you're
29.
Right.
Yeah,
Correct.
so even that. So
Correct.
yeah, chat room wise, no, I think that was incorrect. So 28 games played by everybody except for Dallas and Houston, which means that
backwards.
Yeah, which means Dallas and Houston have a bye week coming up here in these final ones that will sort of set them on pace with everybody else. So everybody has 28 games played in the entire Western Conference except for Dallas and Houston who have 29. So here's what I see whenever I watch the Portland Timbers. I certainly see a team that likes to play balls over the top and in behind, right? They're all about trying to break lines, trying to find that ball in behind, which, by the way, a lot of teams are. That's how you break down defenses. But Portland seems particularly focused on that. They can play very direct, and when they are direct, I feel like they have the ability, certainly with some of their up-top players, Yimi Chara, Felipe Mora, to challenge the Galaxy sort of on that back line. And so when you watch this, it is going to be sort of how the midfield is able to handle cutting out those lanes to keep the ball from being played over the top and into some of these dangerous spots. That being said, I already sort of keyed it. The weakness for me is looking at this midfield and sort of seeing, Diego Valeri is not playing as much as he normally is. And so that's something to watch there. Even Sebastian Blanco and some of the things he does, which, by the way, is a very, very good player, hasn't had as much of an effect on this team as I think he has in past years. But they're a very, very good team, which is something that Greg Vanney sort of pointed out.
And to your point, those are, you kind of named all the key players that we need to be worried about. Felipe Mora and Dairon Esprilla, those are players who lead the Timbers with goals. So Mora leads the team with 11 goals. They're just killers in front of the goal. I think we talked about it a couple games ago. When we were recapping, the Galaxy just don't have those shooters. When you talk about Cabral and Chicharito, they don't have that deadly boot that's just going to, rip a hole through the back of the net. Players like Mora and Esprilla, they do have that. And so that's the thing that's concerning. And then when we talk about defense, where Portland is great, it's not necessarily their defense. It's those midfielders that kind of, play those hinges and make it work, like your Diego Charos, your Claudio Bravos. Those are the guys who, are kind of the engines that make that team work. So this team does have a lot of talent. They make you nervous. I think the Galaxy can match up well because of how Portland likes to press forward, and that leaves them susceptible. Like the last time they played them, where the Galaxy can hang, but it does make you nervous, especially given the Galaxy's form. Which, going back to Gabriel's super chat, we said, would the Galaxy be happy with a tie? And I'm going to give them the absolute worst answer ever, the most frustrating answer, which is they'd be okay with a tie if they played well. So kind of like that RSL game, if they played well, they look good, but maybe they don't win. But they still get a point out of it. That wouldn't be so bad.
This is a very, and it should be underplayed, this is a very confident Portland Timbers team coming into this. They handled LAFC fairly well in the game that they played them. 2-1 win for Portland. Also got lucky in that a VAR handball call was overturned and didn't really. So I mean, Portland plays well. They're comfortable giving up the ball, Eric, and I think that's one of the things. You look at their 1-0 win over Miami was a 50-50 split at home. At home, you should be carrying more of the possession. On the road, they love to cede possession. What do we know about the LA Galaxy is that the Galaxy love to have possession, but have difficulty breaking down condensed midfields and back lines. So expect that. And I saw this watching a couple of their games, is expect that counterattack. That counterattack is dangerous. That counterattack is good. Greg Vanney will tell you here, talking about Portland, a little bit, is that they're a very good team and a very good veteran team to sort of look at. So, yeah.
and going back, if you did watch that LAFC game versus Portland, and I know we were trying to. Last time I watched that was to get the taste out of the Galaxy loss out of my mouth from the last time that happened. But where they beat up LAFC was on the counter. So LAFC obviously is a team that likes to play with a lot of possession, and they just countered quickly. Mora and Asprilla just moved forward and create goal scoring opportunities. So that's where the Galaxy need to be careful. So you almost think they need to do the opposite. Try to let Portland possess and see what they can do from that. But like you said, Portland, that's not how they're going to want to play. They'll be very happy to give up possession and let the Galaxy play around with it.
Let's hear from Greg Vanny to sort of close this out on what he sees from this game, and then we'll give you our guesses on this game. So here's Greg Vanny.
Yeah, obviously they've gone on to a great run. I think they've always been, and I've always said this about them from when we played them at the beginning of the year. They're a mature team. They don't make a ton of mistakes. They stay compact and together, whether that's usually in a relatively deep block or a mid-low block that where their lines are connected and there's not a lot of space between them, and they protect their goal well. And they're very good and dangerous on the counterattack. And in this stretch, I think they've been a little more opportunistic in terms of taking their chances when they've had them than they were in the earlier stretches of the season when they weren't as consistent or getting results. And they're a team that's really built that if they can get the lead, they're very, very difficult to play against. If you can get the lead on them, I think they expose themselves a little bit more, which is not necessarily their comfort zone when they're chasing games, as we saw when we were here against them and we were able to get out in front of them, and then we were able to open up some spaces and get multiple goals. So they're a team that believe they know who they are. They're compact, they're tight, and they have some qualities for sure in the transition and in the final play where with a few chances they can put one or two in the back of the net and then they make the game really difficult on you from then on out. So they've obviously had a good run being able to do that through this time period.
All right, there you go. A little Greg Vanny. Closing it out, he talked about all the things that I think we touched on in this. They have some dangerous players. Really, this comes down to me for the LA Galaxy midfield, and it has for most of this time, and what you're going to get out on there. If you're going to put Victor Vasquez in there, know that he's going to sort of sweep out to the side, and that it's going to open space into the middle for Portland to control some of that middle. Now, I think the Galaxy match up well against Portland. We saw it in the first two games, and yes, I realize Portland is a hot team now. They're a confident team, which is a lot different than when the Galaxy played them at the beginning, which, by the way, one of their first games against Portland, they lost 4-0 because of the red card, Derek Williams. That story is obviously still here. And so you have that story that sort of wraps around. But for that first 43 minutes before the red card, the LA Galaxy were in control of that match on the road against Portland. Now, that's early LA Galaxy as well versus early Portland. And now we're late Portland versus late LA Galaxy.
I pushed back a little. I'd say it was even in the first half because Portland had some opportunities as well in that first half before the red card. So I think it was pretty close, and that's why I think they match up well. But are you ready for the really good news?
What does 538 say?
538 has the LA Galaxy favored with a 47% chance to win and a 29% chance going to Portland, and then a 24% chance for a draw. Now, if you look back and listen to our old shows, we're saying, man, 538 not giving the Galaxy a chance. Man, I don't know why 538 doesn't believe in the Galaxy. And the 538 was proven right. The Galaxy have not done well based on those draws, but for some reason, they're seeing something different. They're seeing the Galaxy as favorites. Are they going to prove 538 correct? Or is this the one time they're going to go against the grain? We'll see how they go. But 538 sees it the way you see it. They see this as a positive LA Galaxy result.
I don't know that I see it as a positive LA Galaxy result. I don't know how 538 can sit there.
It's XG.
I mean, there's a lot of XG. Well, I mean, to be fair, the LA Galaxy's XG hasn't been horrible the last three games, so I can see that factoring into something. So that makes sense to me a little bit. But I don't know, Eric. I don't know. I mean, we talked beforehand, and I know you're going to ruin my saying here, but like, would you be surprised if the LA Galaxy lost the next 6 games? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't. And I go, would you be surprised if the LA Galaxy won the next 6 games? I can confidently say, no, I wouldn't be surprised. You're like, I would definitely be surprised if they won their next 6 games.
If they win their next 6 games, I will shave my beard. I do not see that happening.
Please don't.
There is.
This is a visual medium. This is a visual medium. We don't need that.
That would upset my wife, and with some traveling for work, I need to keep her happy as much as possible. So but that's how confident I am that I don't think they're going to win those last 6 games. That would be shocking to me if they did that. So with that being said, what's your guarantee to be wrong prediction?
I hate it. You know what? Here's my problem.
You want me to go?
No, I don't. But I just would like to point out it is very difficult to hear Sasha Kleshton's confidence and hear him tell you how it's going to be and hear Greg Vanney talk about this. And I don't think they're blowing hot air. I know there's lots of people who are like, oh, they have to say it. I agree. But I also believe that Sasha Kleshton believes what he's saying because he wouldn't say it otherwise. He's like, he would find a different way to say it. But he says he's not worried.
Yeah.
Yes. But he says he's not worried about this team. I mean, I was on the hype train ready to go saying the Galaxy were locked and loaded going against LAFC. And really that first half, I think, vindicated what I said. Just the second half was football and game 3 of 3. That's not. This is game 1 of 1. And so, I can see, and they're talking about Patrick saying Portland are overconfident. I think Portland are just good. I don't know that they're overconfident. That being said, it's time. The roulette wheel has been spinning, Eric. It's been spinning round and round. It's been black, 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 black. It's gonna hit red. Right? And every time it's, a 50-50 chance. It's not. Every time you flip a coin, it's 50-50 chance. There's all these different things that sort of happen in this. I don't feel good about this, but for some reason, I'm going to say for some inexplicable reason, some weird bounce that happens, the LA Galaxy win this game. And they win it like 3-2. It's not going to be the prettiest game.
Wow.
They need to just win an ugly game and just get it out of their system. And I feel like being at home, being frustrated, being there. Now, that being said, with all the internationals gone, I have no idea how this team shows up and plays together as a unit. And I think if they're going to struggle, it will be in this game more than it will be in the midweek game against Houston or the next game,
I could see that.
Or game 3 of 3, as we like to say, against FC Dallas. I mean, throw your hands up and pray on that one. Who knows what you're going to get? That's like, just throw a bunch of die in and spread them out on the table. That's your score. I have no idea, but it feels like they are due a win, and it's going to be stupid, and it's going to happen. And this feels like that game.
Yeah, I think if the Galaxy are going to win, it would need to be something like that, like, going off, one of Kevin Cabral's, braids and going in and winning 1-0 in like the 88th minute. That's the type of game. And then that opens the floodgates and then they get their confidence back and keep going. But I just have to go based on what this Galaxy team was showing me previously, that I'm just not seeing it. And what Portland has been showing me, I see Portland coming in and winning 2-1. That's how they beat other teams, just consistently scoring about 2 goals. And I think the Galaxy are not good for more than 1. So I just see Portland winning 2-1. I'm sorry. I like to be a homer. I like to root for the Galaxy, but based on what they've shown, until they show me something different, that's the expectation that I'm going in with.
E-Super says the Galaxy need to hire a chemist, to fix the Galaxy's chemistry. There's something there. By the way, you made the lights in my room angry.
I know. I noticed.
I would just like to point that out. So, all right, that's it. That's what I have. There's your sure to be wrong predictions. We've given you, I think, one of our most comprehensive previews of the game. Hopefully that helps you out. I did actually watch some Portland games. I got some time to do that. So, it's hot and heavy from here on out. There is another break, but it's, playoff break. That's the next time there's an international break is before the playoffs start, I think, right? It's the season ends and then they go into this thing. Where are we at with Dodgers before we...
It is the bottom of the 9th, 1 out, one on for the Giants. It is nervy time. We can't walk away from the show giving you a result that we're happy or sad. So you'll just have to hope that things go well and the Dodgers are able to hold on for 2 more outs here.
Marvin, by the way, I'm waiting to see if they're going to turn a double play. Marvin, by the way, says as long as there is a Hammer TikTok video before the game, everyone wins. So, by the way, Marco correctly calls me out in the chat room and says that's the gambler's fallacy, Josh, and it absolutely is 100%. By the way, I have gone to Vegas.
Wins money.
I have gone to Vegas and given up so much money to that fallacy many times. It's BS. It's not true. It's just what I like to say because I'm a moron. I don't want you guys to think I'm smarter than it. I'm not. All right.
It's vibes.
Clearly how it is. So is there 1 out, 2 outs still? The chat room says 2 outs. Okay.
Do we want to hang on? So
I feel like but what's going to happen is like San Francisco is going to be like, go through this. By the way, there's a reporter, Scott French, who is a reporter for the LA Galaxy, is like the biggest San Francisco Giants fan. And he comes in wearing his Giants hat all the time to LA Galaxy games. So I'm sure he would not. This is like worst nightmare for him is if the Dodgers can somehow get by the San Francisco Giants in this game. So it's like you can lose to anybody, but you can't lose to that's how it is for Dodger fans right now.
That's the high stakes of this right now. And I will say, 162 games, the regular baseball season, I can't get into it. But playoff baseball, it's a different sport. It feels like it's just a totally different thing altogether, and it's easy to get excited about it just because there's so much pressure on everything. So we're down to 2 strikes. Are we going to hang on? Are we going to keep the filibuster alive on Corner of the Galaxy?
I mean, we can't. It's not like anybody's paying us for this. We can keep going. So I mean, it's close. I feel like it would be. I feel game over. Game over. Game over.
Oh, so someone has a faster feed than I do, but I believe the chat.
Yes, is chat saying game over? Good. Dodgers win. Super says.
Win.
Yep, Dodgers win.
There we go. I love Randy Newman. I love LA. Here we go. Do.
Yeah. Can we get a copyright strike from you singing I Love LA? I don't know.
I kept it under 3 seconds. I think we're safe. We won't get flagged.
All right. Very good. Eric, tell people where they can find you. We can get it. Congratulations, Dodger fans, by the way. Dodgers win, advance past the Giants. That's good. Good for LA. Very fun. I would say one other thing. I saw somewhere that if like the Red Sox end up going to 7 games in their series, that like the Red Sox, the Bruins, the Patriots, and the Celtics all would play on the same day, which I think is kind of cool. So maybe that's something like that can help it happen in LA as well. So we'll nice. see how that goes. All right, Eric, take it away.
So first of all, Sebastian Legette, a Giants fan. Hopefully this loss sparks him to have an excellent game this Saturday. You can find me on Twitter at HammerEV. You can also find me on Instagram at Galaxy Profile. That's Galaxy PROFOUL.
All right. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over cornerofthegalaxy.com. That's where you can find it. Videos up there. Larry's got an article that I'll be posting here a little bit later. Podcasts, all that fun stuff. cornerofthegalaxy.com. A lot of fun. All right, Galaxy, Portland Timbers, 7:30 p.m., 7:38 p.m. kickoff time. Spectrum Sportsnet is your TV station. That's where you can find it. Big game. Must win? No. Big game? Yes. So that's where you can see us. Hopefully we'll see everybody at the game. Remember, vaccination status, all that fun stuff. Negative tests are needed in order to get into the game. All right, for Eric, the Portuguese Hammer Vieira, I'm Josh Patrick Guesman. You've been listening, you've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.